World War III has already started, and it's a different kind. Instead of up in armor or fighting bloodshed, you can control the country much easier today through social media and if you look at it, so I think it's the least preferred methods to shed blood from the transnational point of view. But if you can control if their printing press is transactable. I think a good example would be Croatia. I had a good friend in Croatia I just interviewed 2 days ago, and the minute when they adapt the euro is the triumph of the transnationals because they can then go untethered and monitored in printing and acquiring assets in pharmaceuticals, in media, and start infiltrating a country. It's much like the Japanese appointing a Manchurian national to run Manchuria. And you have in Canada as a good example. Mark Carney has, I think, an Irish passport, and he doesn't even live in Canada, so he doesn't look after the Canadian interest. And I think your current prime minister is is disguising as a Labor Party movement, but hasn't really done much in the last year and a half while he's in power.
Thursday, June 19th, 2025, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with John Lee. He's the CEO of Silver Elephant Mining. I've had him on a couple of times in the last few years, actually about a year ago, John. So welcome back to the channel. There's a lot to talk about from, especially from your perspective, being from Taiwan. So welcome back, John.
Good to be back, Mario. Good to be back, Mario. We are living in extremely interesting times. I think there is being various different plans by just call them the transnationals that have been in the works in the last 50 to 80 years, and they're coming home to roost.
Yeah, I guess you mean the globalists. It could be even more than 50, 80 years. But anyway, let's start with what's going on in the Middle East. And I want to tell the viewers that I'm a bit like Switzerland. I'm neutral, but I will analyze the situation and give my opinion on who's doing well or not in terms of Israel and Iran. I think, John, one of the things they want with all this chaos going on around the world in the last few years is basically for us to take sides so that we get it at each other's necks. And I think, yeah, that's a real shame that a lot of people get trapped in this. But anyway, I'll let you give your 2 cents on the situation.
No, I totally agree. It's whether it's race or gender or religion, and it's the same. It's the same. It's the same. It's the same playbook, and it's very unfortunate. What's going on is I was just listening to Tucker Carlson about about Israel wagging the tail wagging the dog at the United States and dictating the terms. I don't think it's even the Israelis that's dictating the terms. And look what happened with Israel right now. They're getting bombed and getting in the process getting destroyed. I mean, certainly if the Grand Masters, Israel and Zionists, it wouldn't have happened this way. Um, if you want to step back, if we can step back for a bit, and actually let me go from the top down, Mario, the plan is always to topple Russia and China. It's very, very clear, even from the inception of Israel, which is to destabilize the Middle East, and then followed by the control of regimes in Jordan, in Egypt, or at least compliance, and then latest Syria and Iraq, Sudan and Libya. So you have all these strategic, either strategic by location or strategic in terms of oil reserves. They've all been conquered in the last almost 80 years. When I mentioned 80 years, it's since the inception of Israel by the British. So now Israel has served its purpose with the last downfall of Syria, which had been in the works in the last 13 years. It's no surprise. So everything is getting ready to complete surround China. So what I mean by that is, first of all, I've been asked about the tariff and what my thoughts on it. Tariff is just a distraction, Mario. It's not about economics because it's like you're at Walmart and Walmart extended you $1 trillion store credit, and you go back to Walmart and say, I want a 50% rebate. That's how lunacy it is. China extended $1 trillion in credit, getting $1 trillion in IOUs, which it has. And it's in danger of getting that confiscated, just like what happened with the $300 billion in Russia. And United States having issued $1 trillion in IOU, going back to China and say, I want a 50% rebate. I mean, who's getting the short end of the stick, having taken $1 trillion worth of goods for $1 trillion IOUs? That is just a distraction of focus of that for the Chinese to distract the Chinese. About what, a month ago or 3 weeks ago, then you have the Ukraine's mastermind a multifaceted attack in Russia that has struck deep inside Siberia. That's thousands of kilometers. Actually, I mean Mongolia. I'm closer to Siberia than Ukraine was, and claim to have substantially or destroy 30% of their bombing capacity. And then you have Donald Trump went to the Middle East, shaking hands and kumbaya with the Saudis and Qatars, and then strategically announced the lift of sanctions of Syria. And then all of a sudden, not even 2 weeks later, you have Israelis sending 200 warplanes over 1,000 kilometers through Russia, through Syrian airspace, and having refilled some of the strategic airspaces of the countries that Trump had just visited. So it's very clear that the 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 um, the roadmap is near complete to take over to extend the Western influence from Europe all the way extended to Central Asia. They had really and if you look at strategically on the map, I don't know if you can put up the map where I'm talking, is is that once they take over Iran, then the next target will be China. Um, Iran is one of the largest oil supplier to China, and it is literally within 800 kilometers from the Chinese border. And from the map of which you're going to pull up, you can also clearly see why Afghanistan was also in the midst of all this, which has been sort of crown, or which has been a target of both the Russian and the American interest. And it's really nothing fancy about Afghanistan other than there's a lot of poppy fields of which you can profit from, but it's also the proximities to the Xinjiang Chinese border to the west. So what the Americans is trying to do is take over the Middle East, of which Iran is really the last missing piece. And if you blow up that map, you can see already the Americans control from Egypt to Jordan to Lebanon to Iraq. And then if you look at Iran, which is double the size of Iraq, it's about a fifth the size of the United States, massive, of which they're going to reclaim or try to reclaim Afghanistan. And then it's gonna go after China, because you'll be surrounding China from the west, you'll be surrounding China from the southeast, which is Taiwan, and then you'll be surrounding China from the Japanese perspective. So this is all about China in the end, and and at this point, the that's called the transnationals are ready to sacrifice Israel, which has done its job in the last 80 years in exchange for Iran, and they're going to go all out, nothing less, until they get the complete control of Iran, and that's where we're standing right now.
Yeah, and the other thing strategically, you said in the beginning that it's all about Russia and China, and if you look at Mackinder and his theory of like the world island, so if you want to run the world, you have to control Eurasia and Europe, and you can't have Russia and China be strong and especially be allied to Germany, which is another reason why they brought Germany down, the Americans themselves, by blowing up Nord Stream and by collapsing their economy because of that. Uh, but Iran and Afghanistan, all that region there, and Syria and the Levant, it's all part of the Silk Road, right? And it's a huge, and can you imagine if China and Russia got the Silk Road going again all the way to Europe? Yeah, the power of the Anglo-American Empire wouldn't be what it is now. So my question to you is, are the Chinese and the Russians gonna allow this to just go forward? Because I'm sure they know that they would be next.
I am not. I think this event really shook the Chinese. There is a lot of credible intels that there's going to be they're already the current Xi Jinping era is already over, and that in a way that the Chinese already are waving the white flag in from economic point of view, and they were enamored or sort of reminisce to back to 30 years ago in the early 90s when there's what I call the marriage of convenience, Mario, that the with the Deng Xiaoping's opening up era and the Americans seem to have provided a lending hand in providing capital, know-how, technology in exchange for cheap goods, and also biding time for the transnational to complete its roadmap or timeline towards attacking China. And so in that process, everybody benefited. And now with the rise of China, and it's becoming very evident that the marriage is broken down, and the tariff is just a it's just the starter instigator, and things are not going. It's like a marriage doomed to fail. If the wife decided to part ways, there she just carefully, strategically planning the steps leading up to that divorce, which is what we're witnessing right now. And I am not the transnationalists, just called it that, had already conquered the UK, which was the power that be 200, 300 years ago, and then has a very strong hold of Europe because I believe that's where they started from the Ukraine region. They're not even Jewish per se, in my view. And my brother-in-law is Jewish. So studying history, I think we also touched on the subject back in 2022. I don't think it's actually the Zionists that's actually in control of what's happening. And now they have completely infiltrated the United States as well, as I mentioned in our last show in 2022, since the advent of creation of the Federal Reserve, creation of Jekyll Island, they hijacked the banking system just like they did back in the days when they're running Europe. That then they have one of the printers, just like Elon Musk said, there 14 that they found in Department of Defense and in your treasuries and all the different places. They have been printing money and financing all the activities up to where we are today. So the Mossad and the CIA really are joined by the hip, and whatever the Israel is carrying out, it's not really instructed from the Americans or vice versa, but it's just the higher up called the transnationals that has been multi-decade long in the planning in playing good cop and bad cop and vice versa, and they're extremely patient to get to this point. There is, however, we have reached a point of no return. Iraq will be bombed. The question remains as to how is Iran going to react, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, so these transnationalists, they're like the internationalists, they're like the international bankers. And like you said, they can be of any like background, I would say. Uh, and you said back in the day in Europe, I guess the Bank of England was a big step towards them gaining power. It was created in 1694. And you spoke about Xi Jinping, that he might be going, that his
Yes.
power is waning. And it's weird because someone sent me a message on Patreon saying that, and I didn't really believe it. Do you think that that will make a potential conflict even worse versus the Americans? Do you think Xi Jinping is actually a moderate, and the people who want to oppose America are bringing him down?
Xi Jinping is a hardliner like Putin. And well, by the way, Putin, there are also some credible sources that Putin already is gone, and you're not seeing a whole lot of presence in Putin in the media. But Xi Jinping and Putin are two of the hardliners against the transnationals, and that's why Xi Jinping was on feature of Wall Street Journal saying that it is a threat to humanity or human democracy had to be removed through regime change. And so these two are the two standings that are refusing to submit to the transnationals, much akin to what happened with Gorbachev and the Opium War. So it has been the top agenda of the transnational to remove them in order to occupy the two last superpower standing. And the Xi Jinping unfortunately had Xi Jinping had episodes of seizure and collapse in some of the most important meeting of the Politburo about 2 years ago. And since then, his power and also with the event of he removed Hu Jintao in the National Party Congress. So altogether, that really put Xi Jinping on notice. And it's kind of interesting that when you are at the plateau, at the peak, that is your starting with your mind. So the loss of power really started very quickly, and now it's Hu Jintao's faction that is back in charge. Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao are very pragmatic technocrats, and their objective is to maintain the status quo. And they I think they misconceived that Donald Trump is a business leader and maybe bought into Donald Trump's three pillars of his agenda, which is close the border, stop the war, and transact, right? Grow the economies and fair trade. So that sounded like the music ears to the guys in China, and not to instigate, not to interfere, and just everybody minding your own business. We're not going to attack China if you buck off on the South China Sea. But with the event happen, I think it's putting China on notice, and also putting Russia on notice. And if they come to senses, if these two countries come to senses, they have to understand the strategic importance of of Iran, which is multiple times more important strategic than Ukraine, that they will be sending all levels of support in Iran to ensure that is the new playground. And there's already some footages of Chinese cargo planes that had destined for Luxembourg and somehow lost track of radar and in the middle of somewhere approaching, sort of transiting through Iran space. Well, in my view, Iran has to drag this out. Iran must prevent. Well, if I'm Iranian, I will prevent all possible ways to mitigate, to instigate Americans' troops. All it needs to do is you got to hunker down and just stay put. It's not about you. It's never about nuclear. It's not about uranium. If the United States want to bomb that nuclear sites, let them. And let's see how smart Iranians come to senses that it has to be a guerrilla warfare, just like what happened with Afghanistan. It has to, but it has to drag out as long as possible. Pakistan had already talked about that if nuclear weapons were to land on Iran, that Pakistan is going to reply counteract in kind. So it has to continue to drag on. And attacking Israel is again, it's not really the transnational is already written off Israel because it already served its purpose.
Oh, so you actually think they don't care what happens to Israel? They just want Iran?
Yes. Well, it has served its purpose.
Yeah.
Remember when Israel was formed, there was 1948 war, and there's Egypt, and then everybody's attacking Israel, and now that region is pacified. The transnational controls everything from Egypt all the way top down to Syria, and also to the east to Iraq. So there's no reason for Israel's to support Israel anymore. So they're marching forward. They're already conquered. If you look at in terms of a roadmap, or they're already done with the Mediterranean part of the world, and they're going to just keep marching forward east towards China.
Yeah, it's interesting. that you think like that because I never thought of that they don't really care about Israel. And I noticed as well that in Israel they've stopped the government has stopped Israelis from flying out of the country because a lot of Israelis have dual nationality and they want to leave, which is strange. What about China and Russia? As I said, do you think they're going to sit idly by as the transnationalists try to take over Iran? Or do you think there will be a trigger where they will intervene? And would that mean World War III? I mean, I can only think that it would.
World War III has already started, and it's a different kind. Instead of up in armor or fighting bloodsheds, you can control the country much easier today through social media and if you look at it, so I think it's the least preferred methods to shed blood from the transnational point of view. But if you can control if their printing press is transactable. I think a good example would be Croatia. I had a good friend in Croatia I just interviewed 2 days ago, and the minute when they adopt the euro is the triumph of the transnationals because they can then go untethered and monitored in printing and acquiring assets in pharmaceuticals, in media, and start infiltrating a country. It's much like the Japanese appointing a Manchurian national to run Manchuria. And you have in Canada as a good example. Mark Carney has, I think, an Irish passport, and he doesn't even live in Canada, so he doesn't look after the Canadian interest. And I think your current prime minister is is disguising as a Labor Party movement, but hasn't really done much in the last year and a half while he's in power. And so let me step back for a bit and share with you if Iran is toppled, what will happen during the Trump administration is they're going to start provoking Xinjiang. A plausible scenario would be a Xinjiang independence group or Tibet separatists were to create some sort of event of which there may be some bloodshed and some people got killed in the process, kind of like the BLM riot in United States or and in Minnesota, in Oregon, some bonfire came out and some people got killed. And then all of a sudden you have UN that's will send peacekeepers marching towards Tibet. Then there you go, right? And then now and what if Taiwan with the support of the United States and UN passing a resolution to allow Taiwan to vote for independence? And then what's going to happen if China dare to drop any weapon by design or by accident? You have another proxy. And then, but this time you're going to chokehold China from the east and the west. Keep in mind that Saudi Arabia and Iran are two of the largest supplier of crude outside of Russia. So you will complete stranglehold, chokehold China militarily, economically, and now they're draining the. What do you think the purpose of tariff is to drain the Chinese foreign reserve to incapacitate them from sourcing necessary products to defend themselves. I think the China's they were fooled, much as like I was by Trump. Trump did the 180 on the foreign policy, and I don't think Trump. I can tell when Trump is lying when he doesn't believe what he's saying. So he does not believe for a second that Iran's nuclear ambitions present a threat to Israel or United States. I don't think he believes even a second of that. But he somehow bought into possibly that China is a threat to the United States, and Trump is a passionate nationalist. So if he believes that China is a threat to the United States, at least economically, to dethrone United States as the world's number one superpower, then I could see a plausible scenario where Trump would sacrifice Iran in order to go after China. in the end, Trump is a transactional guy. I think he did the 180. I didn't think he anticipated this timing of events, but as soon as he got into power in November, the transnational presented the roadmap to him, and a combination of carrot and a stick got him to sign off. When I mean by carrot, it could be maybe a dynasty, sort of a dynasty promise of lineage of what after his right. He's got his Don Jr. as his appointee, and then I think the stick would be if you want to replay what happened in Pennsylvania. So I think it's a combination of deal making that made Trump to sign off on what is to come.
Yeah, I think it was in March, his uh, director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, she was in Congress.
Sinister. Yeah.
Yeah, and she noted that the intelligence community said that Iran doesn't pose a threat, doesn't have nuclear weapons, and then he was asked by a reporter a few days ago, and he said, "I don't care what she says." So it's really weird. But one question I have though, and because I see the world as the majority of the public, like you, me, and the people watching this, we're all, we're all looking after ourselves, our families. We just want peace and prosperity and freedom. But unfortunately, we're run by psychopaths. It doesn't matter what country it's in. And the top psychopaths, I would say, are these transnationalists, and I think they want to rule the world. They want a one world government, and they might just get it. But my question to you is, what do you think could scupper their goal of world domination?
Yeah, I mean, Mario, it's not the banker just apparatus. It is a small branch of their tentacles. And you have the JP Morgans, you have the Rothschild banks, you have some of these banks, and these are just the tentacles and one of the apparatus that they have. And they have been ruling the world since the dawn of mankind. So they're just continue their heritage. I, if Iran were to be smart and not to retaliate towards American bases and not give the Americans an excuse to have a ground invasion, then Iran is going to continue to trade jabs. And if there's a nuclear sort of a radiation from the bombing, and then Iran is going to use that to gain more sympathy and biding time. I think before in the weeks to come, you could potentially see potentially missile technology, some hardware being shipped from either China or Russia, or maybe that has already taken place, and designating Iran as the new playground. And that would be the best case scenario, unfortunately, for Iran. And we have to wait and see. In terms of answering the question, is what could stop the transnationals from carrying out their agenda? Um, you cannot stop them. You cannot stop them. You can only contain them, unfortunately. But in the end, Mario just on the other show, the darkest time of mankind when AI controls mankind, and you have the government go rogue. You have elements that are wreaking havoc on the streets. There's always a way out, and they're going to give you plenty of signs before. You just gotta make sure you're mobile. Buy a lot of gold and silver because that is the only way to circumvent digital micro mandates from digital currency, and which is going to happen in 2026 in Europe, and that's going to restrict your movement and dictating on what you can buy, when you can buy, and how far you can travel to buy them. Um, I can already enter the United States with just a showing my face on the screen. There is not even an inspection of my passport. And the system is already linked throughout Southeast Asia, where it's the same facial recognition system. Mario, I'm not sure if you know, but that system is implemented universally throughout the world. It's the same. It's the same device that will scan your face and know who you are. And that's just going to be the way. It's going to be the way it is. And maybe it's 5 or 10 years from now. Um, I was a little bearish maybe a couple of years ago when I come to your show, but I'm becoming a little more optimistic because, like I said, when the rulers conquer the world, that is when the epiphany and the collective conscience come in and free people. But in the end, the world is dictated by collective conscience. Unfortunately, 99% of the conscience is asleep, but they're gradually waking up. And the constraints of the rules are very, very artificial. So I'm quite optimistic that humanity is going to come out in the end and prevail because those transnationals are extremely small in number. They couldn't possibly have the ability to surveil and then to dictate the terms unless they have accomplice to help accomplish their agenda. But I think the accomplice are harder and harder to recruit because the visibility of the internet and the travel of information that's available to all.
Yeah, and even like there's been a lot of talk on social media about a possible false flag to instigate the US to join Israel in this war, but it hasn't happened. Maybe it's because so many people are aware of it and they can't do it anymore. But you mentioned gold and silver, so maybe we can skip over now to the markets and silver and Silver Elephant Mining, the company of which you are the CEO.
Oh, it's not the first time coming to the. I'm not a student of history. I don't have a lot of time to read, but I recall it's the first world. I believe the First World War where there's a sail towards England with another Americans that was bombed allegedly by the Germans that brought the Americans into war. And the true reason was that because the British was owed a lot of money to J.P. Morgan. Then if the German was if the British were to lose, the J.P. Morgans would not be able to collect. So it's not the first time; it will not be the last. When I came on your show, I recall it's October 2022. We might also have another episode in 2023. Gold was 1800 and silver was below 20. And even with, say, just 2023, gold was around 2200 and silver was in the low 20s. And I had mentioned to you that my family started buying gold the first time. I remember because we started buying at 1800. Surely we came on your show. We started buying in July of 2022. We came on your show October. Well, gold has gone up about 50%, more than 50% since then at 3,300. And silver had gone up just recently from the 20s to 35. I believe that there is going to be the 3,000 mark is a permanent platform for gold. And I mentioned before the reason for gold is not about inflation. It's none of that inflation stuff. I mean, oil is at $60, right? How about that? But rather it's a diversification by the by the well-to-dos, by the Elon Musk, by the Zeras, by some of the people who just don't want to be part of this micro mandates, and also by the central banks in Asia with excessive dollar holding, and also by the Russians and the Chinese and the Japanese. So the gold is going to stay at around $3,000 as a permanent level, and it might break out of 3,500, but it might struggle to do so for a while because there has been a big rise and there's some profit taking. Interestingly, there is, as we speak right now, Mario, a rotation from gold into silver. And that is just happened literally in the last 3 weeks. And that propels silver to break out an all decisive $35 resistance, which is now has become support. If you pull out a 50-year chart of silver, you can see that silver is going to go over $50 in two times. One is the 1980, and the other one was 2011. So the first time when silver broke out of 1980, and then in 2013 or 2014, it challenges $50 again. So that was a cup, if you think of a cup, right, of 35 years, Mario. And then you can see the second cup. There you go. So you can see the first cup, right, 1980. So it's a cup, right? It took about 35 years, go from 1980 to 2013. So that's a cup. When I talk cup, it's like the period, right? It took 13 years.
Yeah,
And now the second wave.
Teacup and handle.
Yes. Yeah. So now there's a second wave that's coming from 2013, now it's 2025. So that window shortened from 35 years to 12 years. And so I believe $50 is imminent. So you could be looking at right now. There's a rollover. There's a rollover of the July silver contract that has to be sold in by June the 27th, I believe. And from there is going to be another uptick of silver and it's gonna break out at the $40 level to challenge the $50 level. Even at a $50 level, the gold to silver ratio will be about 70, which is the norm. And that ratio happened at 100, not even 2 weeks ago. And that's when I started broadcasting a lot of different places saying that this is the top for gold relative to silver for a while, and it is the best time to get into the silver. And you can see from the rotation that silver broke out from 34 to $36, a 7% rise in a matter of a week. So now it's breaking out, but the cartels are throwing the kitchen towel to try to put the lid silver back in under the lid of $35. It's not going to happen. And you're going to see this $35 level hovering for another 10 days. Then it's going to march toward the $50 level. It could potentially break out of 50 and go to 100 in an exponential fashion. And the reason I say that was, recall, Mario, in 1980, when oil was 40, gold was 800, silver was 40. Okay. In the second run, uh, in 2013, I believe gold was around 1400, silver was 50, and oil was about 120. So, in relative to gold and oil, silver is very, very undervalued. And the reason for that, I would just briefly touch on, it's really not to do with fundamentals. It's all to do with suppression of the silver price. So think of the silver price as a proxy, kind of like Ukraine, right, and Iran, and it's a proxy between the fiats and the fiat and the real money. And this is the last frontier because the printing machine has to continue to print, to recruit the complex, like we talked about, to execute their roadmap, multi-decade long roadmap agenda. So it's essential, it's imperative that gold and silver prices are suppressed. So the cartel try hard at the $18 level. They struggled for a few months, and then gold eventually broke out and was nonstop physical buying. Every time the paper market whacked gold, you can see that the buyers of gold were undeterred. So you never see any substantial correction. And every time there is a correction, the rally quickly ensued within days. This is what we're going to see in silver. It's very clear to me. Silver usually is the poor sort of victim that's sort of hiding behind the tree, kind of very safe play, right? If gold is up, silver is up, but when gold is down, silver down double. But now you're seeing clearly the rotation of gold into silver, where we have seen a number of days with the June that gold will be down, but silver is up. I've been a student in silver for about 25 years. This is a highly unusual event. So that just tells me there's a new breed of silver bugs that's coming into the fold, and they are making a strategic allocation into silver. So bottom line, you're going to see a lot higher silver prices. And if the war breaks out and there's a dip in the equity market, will present a wonderful buying opportunity, silver at around 35, 36. But honestly, the downside is silver at 35 or 36, you give up $1 and you're going to make 10. So it is extremely attractive risk to reward ratio. I want to also briefly mention, Mario, that the plunge protection team is in full force. The transnational already own around 95% of the S&P 500, 90 or 95%. So they can dictate the terms of, or dictate the market in any given day. And the way, you're going to hear this from anybody else. I watch the market, I know. The US total S&P marketization is around $60 trillion. They have a printing machine to print and buy them to support the market. However, the printing machine can only print so fast. So that's why, sometimes occasionally the market is selling so fast or going up so fast that the printing machine is not printing fast enough to suppress the market. And that's what you saw in February when the market corrected, because the Japanese, the Chinese, they were selling equity. But then you see miraculously the market rebounds in light of a war, in light of all the tariff discussion are still ongoing, in light of everybody missing earnings, they're still going up. Kind of like, very much akin to the pandemic, right? That's just magical that market started to rebound. So all in all, it's a great opportunity. Really, it's a generation of a silver. And once silver go to over $50 and plateaued, then it's going to endure another 7 years of doldrum. Remember, we saw the first cup was 35 years, and the second cup from 2013 to 2025 was 12 years. So the third cup, you're going to have to wait about 6 years to see another big run up. And Mario, I don't know how much time you have. I can happily spend another 3 minutes talk about how the cartels manipulate the silver to create a top, or we can talk about how gold was following a very, very similar pattern, had just broken out. I think it's relevant, Mario, if you don't mind
Yeah,
pulling up a 50-year gold chart.
we can talk about both. I've got time, so I'll bring up the gold chart. And the reason why I put the gold chart up because the break of this line here in gold what silver is doing now reminds
Yes.
me of this break in gold. So that's
You
why I
want to
think
go back to 1980, though. I love to go back
yeah,
to that.
yeah, there we
You
go.
can see that, Mario. I'm not sure if this is a linear scale or log scale. This
This
chart's a
is
little
a
different from mine.
log scale.
Okay, but you can see that from 1980 to 2008, right? It took around 1980 2008. It took 30 years. So it took 19 almost 30 years for the first cup formation. And the second cup formation is from 2018 to 2024. So you can see the waves of what's happening, and you can see that the time for the cups to re-challenge the neckline is getting shorter and shorter. And so that's what we're gonna see with silver. And the first cup took 35 years, and the second cup formation took 12 years, and now it's gonna break out like gold was 2 years ago. And this is gonna be a very it's gonna be a very exponential it's going to be a very exponential rally. And let me share with a couple of minutes on how that works, because it's on another show. I
Yeah.
think it's very relevant. Once think of you're packing your suitcase to get on a carry-on luggage to get on a flight. So you're stuffing. There's a lot of stuffing of liquidity into silver, but the cartels were putting the zipper on for so long, to the point where eventually the suitcase is going to burst, which is what we're witnessing right now. The first phase of people that are buying silver at this point, Mario, is the short covering. So the shorts are hedge funds in New York and London. And these shorts are covering because the general has been retreated. The general is the transnationals with the printing machine. So the transnationals don't mind paper loss, right? Because they have infinite to print. But the hedge funds are the little troopers. They are covering right now. That's why they took silver from 34 to 36. The second wave of people, Mario, is going to buy silver are the industrial users, because silver is a critical metal. They have to buy silver to continue to build solar panels, to build computers, and to build cell phones, to build television, to build microelectronics to be put into the missile. So the industrial users are going to start fueling the fire, and then you're going to have the speculators that's momentum driven, and that they're going to start buying physicals, and then you have the mom and pops also start to accumulate. So this is all happening at once. So the tide is going to swing completely 180. Everybody was a seller. Everybody's becoming a buyer. And cartel is going to continue to feel, oh, the cartel is going to stand by, to the point when the cartel sense that there's an exhaustion of speculative physical buying. They're going to, instead of selling, suppressing the price, they're going to actually feel the price. They will coming into the paper market. They will start cooking up the silver price. You could conceivably see a silver up to $5 to $10 a day, that create a massive ring handle on a massive volume multiple times prior trading, and you're going to see a big whack in the market by the cartels. And so when the speculators exhausted their physicals buying, when the industrial user has stockpiled enough silver to not worry about it, and then when that big reversal come in, and then with declining volume and higher tops, then you're going to see the algos and the cartels start attacking the silver market like there is no tomorrow. And that is when you know the top is in place. Right now, we're not even close to that. So I would just caution those that has successfully traded silver on a consolidation sort of a strategy. is you don't want to get too cute right now. We're on the cusp of a major breakout that the silver bugs has waited 20, 30 years to get to
Yeah,
where we are.
and
Mario.
yeah, and I've got the teacup here again, and
Yes,
we got a handle that we've broken. So you said
it's
that
beautiful.
yeah, we're going to see another teacup in the next 6 years. But where do you think silver is going to get to? Because to me, getting to 50 and then see another 6 years of consolidation doesn't seem very bullish.
Right.
Do you
Well,
think where do you think we could go before we see a major, let's say, top again for
yeah, my
silver?
guess. Yeah, Mario, my guess, sorry to interrupt. My guess is we're gonna see 100 in the next 2 months. If you see the pattern of this ascent, oh, can you go back to the chart?
Yeah, hold on. Let me share it again. Hold on. Let's go back. Yeah.
You see the pattern of this ascent right now from 20 early 2025 when silver is around what 30. I cannot see the chart to now silver is 35. This ascent is very it's very steady versus if you see the ascent of from the 1980 and then also 2023, silver doubled in a month. And so that is the vertical explosion. So we have yet to witness that. So that tells me that the launching pad just started, that it's going to start his regular ascent, orderly ascent from what we are to about 50. And then from 50 is nobody's game because nobody knows. We have never seen a level like this. If you were like, so let's speculate for a minute, Mario. If you were to use gold to silver ratio as a guide, the silver usually tops when the gold to silver ratio is at around 30 to 50. So let's just pick a round number. Say if that ratio were to go to 40, and then gold stays at around $3,300 level. So then that would dictate silver being at around 80, Mario. Also, keep in mind that silver is extremely small market. That the total annual supply of silver from mines is a billion ounces, 30 billion dollars versus gold. You're looking at $1 trillion market, and above ground inventory for gold is well over $2 trillion today, whereas for silver it's less than a billion ounces. So you and I will be completely speculating on what happened, and the top honestly will only be in hindsight. What I mean by that is the top could easily be 150 or 100 or even 200. You never know because, like I said again, it's the collective conscience that will decide. The last FOMO guy that come in will decide over the market where the market tops. So we have no idea. But after that market tops, there will still be opportunity to get out. As I said, what you want to look out for is that big candle uptick with massive volume, and then equally impressive downside. And then you're going to see some rallies with declining volume and lower tops, right? So that's what you have made most of your money. And if you can take your money off the table 20% from the top, you should be very happy, especially if you're getting at these levels. And then you got to wait for 6 or 7 years, in my view, to see another big rally because the momentum would have been exhausted. Everybody would be so sick, so tired, and the FOMO guys already come in. And then it's going to be a while before we see another renaissance in gold and silver prices. You know what? How the world will be configured at this point, I really don't know. I really don't have it. I really don't know. But I think the Iranian will be is too smart to be counterattacking U.S. bases, even with a bomb dropped at the nuclear site. I mean, so what, right? So you
Yeah.
lost strategic power generation facility. The last thing you want is to have a ground invasion. You want to drag the strategy is to drag this out as much as you can, and getting as much sympathy from the world, and then the Muslim world, the Pakistanis, the Chinese, and also the Russians, and even the Turkey will stop lending support. Now, not just from the words of condolence. I think you're going to start seeing some real tangible supplies of physical goods into Iran to make sure that to put a stoppage on the ultimate agenda of the transnationals.
So you're not that bullish on gold in like from here because even though there are some people who are calling, even JP Morgan said gold could be by 2029 could be at 6,000. So you don't see gold going to 8 or 10,000 in the next few years?
I don't because the the people who bought gold from 1800 to 3200 in less than 14 months, it is a dramatic, it is a dramatic, sizable move. And you're not seeing gold going, you're not seeing gold have these very high level, high volatility nature reactions. So as I mentioned to you, these are the people that are Xi Jinping, are the Bank of India, and are the Russians and the Japanese. And you're talking costing $1 trillion to get gold to this level today from what it was 2 years ago. It's going to take you another $2 trillion to get to 6,000. I
Yeah,
just don't see because the Western world and the cartels, transnationals, they're not going to buy gold, right? They're not, it's not they're not going to buy gold. They own 70, 80% of the gold in Switzerland. But they don't want to see a high gold price because their mechanism is to print loads gold and silver price on the COMEX and in London. But then most of the refineries, I'm not sure if you're familiar, Mario, is in Switzerland. They are backing the truck of gold into their vault directly with the printer. But there's no incentive for them to see a high gold price. So if there's not sufficient physical gold buying in the market, then they can use the paper market to manipulate the gold prices. So I am not as bullish on gold and if you look at it from the chart point of view, it has broken out. And usually when you have a big rally, it's about 2 to 3 year rally, and then gold since then would really go nowhere. And that is very consistent with gold's actions in the past. So I don't know what sort of the trading range will be, but I would not be surprised to see gold oscillate from 3,000 to $4,500. And you can clearly see some of the um, early riders in gold that are at 1,000. You can see that, right? Gold, like the times for gold to rally in 1980 and also from 2003 to 2016, it's 2 to 3 year rally, at most 5 years. So if you look at the rally that's starting in 2022, we're already 2 to 3 years in the tooth. And also the price action of gold is fairly indicative of a bit of a blow off. It's gone up quite a bit without any stop. So it's very different from silver. If your audience were looking into either gold or silver, I don't think it's a question right now that silver is a lot better performing than gold. Then you can put up the gold to silver ratio as I mentioned to you, which is also a very interesting indicator. And
yeah.
Mario,
I'll
yep,
bring up the ratio. I mean, I tend to think, I mean, that gold still has a long way to go, only because in since 1971, the fiat era, whenever there's a
yes.
major bull market in precious metals, silver eventually leads the way, but gold continues to move too. But you know, we can disagree on things. But from what you tell me, and I agree with you, the potential here or the opportunity here is much more geared towards silver. And that's why I have silver as well. But I'm not going to get rid of my gold to get silver. I'll just try to get rid of more fiat to get silver or silver miners. So I bring up the gold silver ratio, and then you can talk about your company's silver elephant.
So this is a beautiful chart that you see gold to silver ratio. It only topped over 100 two times. One is the 1980s. Unfortunately, I was just 10 years old, so I can't really recall the event that taken place led to that ratio. But the historical norm is around 70, and every time the ratio toppled over 100, you can see a big retracement down to about 50 levels being the trough of that ratio. So at a $50 level and $3,500 gold, you're looking at well, $3,500 gold and a 50 gold to silver ratio, you're looking at a $70 silver price. I think that will be a fairly conservative target. But usually the ratio overshoot to as low as 30. So in that scenario, you'll be looking at around $100 silver. Um,
Do you see
One
here
quick
that,
point,
sorry,
Mario. The
sorry,
way I look at it, I've been handing out some coins to my contractors who's fixing my roof. This is poor man's money. And it's a great way to spread the love and educate the crowd about the utility of silver. Eventually, when the micro mandates come, where you are unable to pump gas in the stations because you have exceeded your carbon limits, silver would be a very good exercise, good utility for you to get the things that you need, the necessities you need. Or if you cannot eat any more steak because again you exceed your carbon credit, that your digital wallet has given you a beep, and that silver coin will come in extremely handy for you. It'll be a little challenging to transact with gold because your ounce of gold is in the $3,000 range.
Yeah.
On Silver Elephant, Mario, I think you brought some good karma for us. Since I come on your show, Elephant has done quite well. Until recently, earlier this year, we have been producing silver in 2023 and 2024. We produced 1.4 million ounces of silver and actually were profitable. Unfortunately, we had a setback late last year, earlier this year, when one of our key mining production contract was canceled by the Bolivian government. So that is a brief setback of which we are talking to the government as to the reasoning, and we still try to work it out. There's no, as far as we know, that there's nothing wrong with our operation. Nobody can point it out anything that's wrong. So that may be a continued process for weeks or months to come. I'm not going to put a timing on it, but we are making some good progress. But in the meantime, we have started the development of an alternative area of which we have access to, and we have the mining claim of. So the production restarted, and we'll be realizing revenue in about the next 2 to 3 weeks when we ship our stockpile to the processing facility, and from there the product would be sold to the international market. It's a little longer than we'd expected because we have to tying all the steps in order to get to revenue. I mean, there's logistics and permits and licenses we need to have to export silver outside of Bolivia, but all of those pieces are substantially in place. The stock hasn't done well, since the January news, but has rebounded quite a bit, around 20-30%, since we announced the restarting of our operation in Bolivia 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree with you about when one day we'll probably have to use silver coins. Like I've got some here. These are shillings and a US quarter, or bigger ones. It will basically be a black market. That's what it will be. And
Yes.
yeah, we'll be able to, because if they are successful and they get a CBDC, they're going to tell you, you ate too much steak this month. You can't buy any more steak.
Absolutely. And I mentioned to you, it's not if, but Mario's when. It's inevitable. Even if you book a flight on United, that will tell you it's 950 kilos of carbon from Taipei to New York. You know what the proposed or imposed limit of the carbon credit per capita for 1 year? Rumored to be 1,000 kilos. So that means if you would take a flight, that's what identical. You're allowed to take a Sophia's choice. Either you take a trans-ocean holiday, and of which you're gonna be eating tofu for the rest of the year, or you just hunker down and not go anywhere and be sitting in your apartment, 400 square foot apartment cell, and eating your meat and eating your chicken. All the apartment buildings in Canada, which is one of the more advanced WEF country like UK. I think UK and Australia and Canada are the three amigos for the WEF agenda. You're going to have a CBDC. The condo apartments in Canada now, they don't even have parking spaces. The highway lane, the bridges or the main travel roads connecting the cities went from 4 lanes to now 2, and you reserve two bike lanes and one human walk lanes. And they are phasing out your transportation avenues so that you will just be imprisoned. And unfortunate, but that is what's coming, Mario. And I would just highly recommend people to go out there and experience the world as much as you can. And I want to also bring up one more thing is I read a book called Conversation with God. Really changed my world of thinking. I'm the last thing from evangelical. Haven't read the Bible, but it really illuminated to me that we are in this world. We are part of God, which is however you want to name it, Allah or Buddha. You are part of it. The God is infinite intelligence, and it's kind of a key, Mario. I want to share with you sincerely, faithfully, is it's kind of like you know how to drive, right? But you don't have a car. So humans are manifested to experience, an apple, or how to drive, or how to fly, or how to see a flower. Because in the world of God, it's an absolute, it's a bliss, but there's no contrast. So we are here to accumulate wealth. But the definition of wealth is not money, it is experience, which is what we are here to do.
Yeah,
And my
I
20,
agree.
after reading the book in 2024, I really had an epiphany. I was like, you know what? It's not like you have to it's not like even karma that you have to do good things or you're gonna be revenged upon. No, it's not that. You can experience all sorts of feelings, but in the end, like my goal for 2025 is to eat all the different things I've never eaten before. So my palate, right, has gone from 50 traditional things that I order, not because I love them, because they're safe bets, to try things I've never done before. Or I'm not having to venture into eating frogs or crocodiles, but I've tried dishes that I like pad thai, which to the Thai people would be seen as a dish like for the foreigners, or even sweet and sour pork, Mario, to the Taiwanese, eating sweet and sour pork would be like a sin. Because that is like a foreigner, right? Or it's akin to Mongolians ordering Mongolian beef in Los Angeles. That will be like that is not even but these constraints are artificially placed. And I would just highly recommend, in the short years, and I had a health episode this year, and I am recovering, but I just felt it's so important right now not to be consumed with all the craziness in the world and the climate change and the cartels and all that. Just go on the experience, go out for a walk. There's butterflies and there's mosquitoes, there's a rainbow, and there's all sorts of crazy stuff that's out there for you to experience, and just do more of that.
Yeah,
And less they're concerned about, somebody get bombed 3,000 kilometers away.
I I agree, and go out for a walk with Rudy as well. And I had kind of like an epiphany last year. I don't know if you know, I had heart surgery last April. The doctor cardiologist found I had a congenital problem, and I was getting very tired when playing golf. So it went well, the operation. They put a new valve, aortic valve, on in my heart, pig valve actually. But that made me realize you got to live every day like it was your last. And that's what I
Exactly.
tell people. Right, Rudy?
You know what, Mario? You look good. Looks like you lost some weight, and looks like some people just look bad, right? Maybe they're too many misties. Some of our business partners that might have been some sort of influence to what's happening, what things in the ground. But you know what? In the end, Mario, you don't go to heaven or you don't go to hell after you leave. You are just going to go back to the mothership, and if you wish, you'd be reassigned to start all over again, if you choose to. And check us out, silveralef.com, and symbol is SILEF. And over the OTC that's OTC, and on the Toronto Stock Exchange, ELEF. You
Yeah,
can look me up on Twitter. Twitter is just look for John Lee Silver Olive. You can see that I call when silver is $35. I call that silver is gonna break out, which it did 10 days later, and hope to get on your program again when silver gets to 50. And it's not gonna take too long. It's not gonna be a year, Mario.
I agree. What's your Twitter
You
again?
just look John Lee Silver Olive, Silver Elephant. I think you should get it. You should get there.
Lee Silver. Uh, oh, here we go.
There
I
you go.
think I follow you anyway. So there you go. If
So if
people
you
want to
could scroll
follow
down a bit, you'll see I put that breakout chart when silver is $35. There you go.
this one, yeah,
So
yeah.
that was May the 20th.
Yeah, I
Yes,
don't
it's
think
beautiful.
I think I was looking at the chart before we started, and I think the next key resistance is 35, 37.50, 51, which is the high in 2012. We got to 31 yesterday, 20 37.31. But after we break that, there isn't that much resistance till like 44. So I think it's not that long. We've been waiting quite a while, but now it's going to start to take off. That's my view.
I say, catch up again soon, Mario.
Thank you. You too.